Welcome back. The United Arab Emirates has declined South Africa's request for the extradition of the Gupta brothers. The Justice Department says it was only notified of this decision on a diplomatic note on Thursday, even though the decision was actually made back in February. The department has come under severe criticism for alleged missteps in the application for this extradition. Let's unpack the story further for you. We're speaking to Professor Siphamandla Zondi, who's the director of the Institute for Pan-African Thought and Conversation at the University of Johannesburg. Prof, it's great to see you. Thanks very much for coming on an Easter Monday. So, by all accounts, just looking at weekend reports, the UAE, we now know, has invited us to resubmit our application. As far as I know, the Justice Minister has said that he feels this will just be a box-ticking exercise. Have we given up the quest to bring the Gupta brothers back to South Africa?
I think, good morning. I think the Department of Justice knows that it has made an undertaking that it will ensure that the findings of the very expensive Zondo Commission will be followed through, and it will lead to arrest of those who are found to have engineered very structured, organized corruption, sometimes called state capture, and that this would be done with great speed in order to assure the public that that 1 billion spent on that commission was not merely just for us to get news and interesting point. And I know that because for that reason they would, seems likely that they would take up this opportunity opened by the UAE to persuade the UAE that though the UAE also has jurisdiction on the trying of these cases that South Africa has brought before it, but it would be good for South Africa to have the Gupta brothers extradited to South Africa. It's quite a difficult one. It's much easier when you know that the country that is applying for extradition is the only one with a reasonable jurisdiction over a matter at hand. But they have to pursue this case, at least for purposes of managing the public opinion and keeping to their word that they were going to chase after these issues. It will be a huge loss for them if they are not able to close this particular one.
How does it happen, Prof, that this decision is taken in February and we only get wind of it here in South Africa towards the end of March? I mean, surely it is our responsibility as the country applying for this extradition to keep tabs on what's unfolding in that country.
It is flabbergasting, I must admit. It really doesn't send a positive message about our efficiency or the efficiency of our relationship with UAE. Under normal circumstances, I'm thinking about a South African situation. If a court decides one way or the other about, say, a matter of extradition by another country, we would already know because it's in the news. It's all over. Or because we're a party to a court case, so we would have been in court to hear about it and stuff like that. It's quite flabbergasting that such huge news are picked up more than a month later, and there isn't a clear explanation as to why it is so and what have we done about it. We have strong diplomatic relations with UAE. It is not even clear if we protested, if UAE somehow nefariously out of ill will decided to hide this thing from us. It's two levels. One is that it just looks messy how the whole thing turns out, but it is even more concerning that it's not clear what we have done about it now that we have realized this has happened. If we have been swindled, if we have been lied to, if information has been withheld from us, that's a huge development.
Yeah.
What have we done about it? Not very clear. Until we now hear that UAE is saying we open up another opportunity. It creates an impression that South Africa is not taking this seriously. The UAE is the one trying to make amends out of this.
Yeah. Our law enforcement arms, our crime-fighting ability is seriously under question, not least because of this issue around the Gupta brothers. I mean, you know, there are serious questions being asked now about if the brothers were indeed not spotted in Switzerland, and if it hadn't been reported by Bloomberg, would we even be aware on this 10th of April that they were no longer being held in custody in the UAE? It sort of reeks of the story of Thabo Bester. If that photograph had not been taken of Thabo Bester and Dr. Nandipa Magudumana on a shopping trip, would we even know that he had staged this audacious escape from prison?
Public perception, clever political communication are absolutely important for maintaining public trust in public institutions. And we know from recent surveys, including the Afrobarometer survey, that South Africa, as in a number of other countries, are experiencing a fast diminishing of the public trust in public institutions. And it is in issues of this nature and the manner in which we kind of like Castiel manage them in a kind of a casual way that can actually harm public perception about our government and public perception about how the criminal justice system is handling this very thorny matter. It's hugely in the public profile, but also that represents what we do with regards to the phenomenon of state capture. And I just hope that lessons have been learned and been learned very quickly, because communication around this matter hasn't been sound, and because the shaping of public opinion on this issue has not been issued. But it seems as if we have not also been acting as optimally as we should have in making sure if there was a breach of diplomatic protocol here relating to exchange of information and agreements we have with UAE, that matter has been taken up very seriously, and that if there is a sense that UAE has been trying to kind of put South Africa in a bad light, which would be very impolitic and undiplomatic for UAE, that we take up that matter and that we inform the public that we are not allowing South Africa to be played in this way. But it doesn't seem that we're handling that in a way. It's not very clear what has actually happened. It has UAE played us, or there has been a technical error somewhere. What has happened and what are we doing about it? It's a very important piece of information in terms of building trust in our government, in our criminal justice system, and in our international relations. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's plenty of speculation, to your point, Prof, that we don't want the Gupta brothers back in South Africa, that there is no political will to get them back here to answer for their alleged state capture crimes because of how much they know.
Oh, it would be damaging if that perception sticks and somehow it made it to look real, that we actually are not hoping that this extradition application is successful, so that we are able to say, wash our hands like Pontius Pilate and say we tried, but it did not work, because it would anyway, returning them here would be a huge test for our criminal justice system and for our promise to break away from that era of runaway corruption. And it doesn't really send a positive signal that it seems that we are not taking up this issue in a big way. You would expect by this time we would have appointed a special envoy, we would have sent a special envoy to UAE, or a big delegation, or the Minister of Justice would be in UAE now, taking up this issue, at least for purposes of assuring the public that we are taking this seriously enough. Because, remember, 1 billion was spent on investigation of this matter, and it revolved around the role of the Gupta brothers anyway. 1 billion. So we cannot be casual about it. Definitely cannot send a signal that we are not taking it seriously. It's better to act in panic than to act with complacency, especially where public trust is at stake and with elections coming in 2024.
Yeah.
It just can't be.
Yeah. 1 billion spent on the state capture inquiry. Let's not forget about the hundreds of billions that left South African shores as a direct result of state capture. But there just doesn't seem to be that urgency, at least insofar as public perception is concerned.
Yes, and then as I said, perception is everything. And you have to manage perceptions when you're in a government that is saying that it wants to undertake a new dawn and do things a little differently, and then break you with the past and be more transparent and more accountable. And then you found not to be very accountable, not to be very transparent, not to be very communicative about many of these things. It's a huge thing. I mean, for us who teach political science, we say that political communication can make or break governments in transitions, or governments in crisis, or in difficulties. Because a lot of this difficulty has to relate with the court of public opinion that we must manage. And if you don't manage, your enemies will manage it for you, and you're giving them easy wins. But beyond just that game, the citizens matter, and the citizens deserve absolute transparency from their government in relation to how these matters are being handled.
Professor Siphamandla Zondi, let me thank you for your time this morning. He's the director of the Institute for Pan-African Thought and Conversation at the University of Johannesburg.